Hello and welcome to a new week Granada Reports. We're live with the news in the Northwest.
Hello, thanks for joining us. Here's what's coming up on tonight's programme.
COVID has taught me a lot about myself. It's taught me a lot about being resilient and leaning on the community, leaning on family and friends who are in a position and who want to offer help.
Living in the shadow of the pandemic, 5 years on from the first lockdown, long COVID patients tell us the axing of NHS services has left them in the lurch.
We've all been upset about it. I've got young grandchildren who it could have been.
A town turns red in memory of young Manchester United supporter Poppy Atkinson, who was killed during a football training session.
Ashley was brutally murdered by two men who'd been released on licence. Could more have been done to keep those who killed him behind bars?
It's a place that set the stage for Beatlemania, but it's been destroyed by fire. A campaign has launched to restore one of the venues where Lennon and McCartney first performed together.
And there goes the final whistle. Macclesfield FC are promoted to the National League North.
Celebrations for the Silkmen as Macclesfield clinch promotion. We speak to Robbie Savage about their huge success in his first season in charge.
And in the weather, what a difference a bit of sunshine makes, eh? There's more where that came from tomorrow. However, a bit of a disappointing start. All the details coming up shortly.
Well, first tonight, for many of us, it's a distant memory, probably best forgotten.
Yeah, it's 5 years ago that the COVID pandemic really hit home with the first of a series of lockdowns that left many of us isolated from loved ones and fearing for the future.
Things have moved on, of course, but far from being consigned to the history books, COVID continues to cast a long shadow for those affected most seriously.
Long COVID patients say they feel abandoned as NHS England's ring-fence funding for services comes to an end. I
went to meet some of those still feeling the effects 5 years on.
I was active, I was out and about, doing lots of work around the homeless. So we used to deliver quilts and blankets for the homeless. So I used to spend my time going into town, into Manchester and doing that.
As a volunteer in her community, Juliet spent her life helping others. But COVID-19 has left her needing care.
I felt a bit unwell and I assumed at that time it was a chest infection. And that's what I was treated for. And then eventually I ended up going to hospital in August 21 and I was put on a ward with other people and then moved to a room on my own, which they said my breathing was a bit erratic and they were going to give me some oxygen. So I did that for about a day, 2 days, and then I was told that my lungs needed a rest. So they took me into intensive care and that's where it all started. Lines going in my hand, my arm, in my neck.
Juliet's life changed after doctors placed her into an induced coma. Weeks turned to months and loved ones said goodbye.
It was my son who eventually, because when I actually came out of the coma, I was like, 2.5 weeks. And my son was like, no, more like 4 months. And that's when I learnt about what was happening to me. My body was failing. And the multiple organ failure that I was suffering. So it was my kidneys, my liver, my lung that had this massive blowout. And I was in a real bad state to the fact that my feet was going blue, changing colour. And that's when they told my son, this is it, your mum's actually passing away.
5 years after, the then Prime Minister delivered
a very simple instruction. You must stay at home.
There are now almost 2 million people in the UK living with long COVID, and many like Juliet feel abandoned and forgotten.
You know, it's not a quick fix, it's not something that can go away, and I suspect there are probably hundreds, maybe thousands of people more who are living with it but haven't been diagnosed with it.
Sarah is on a COVID journey of her own. She says she's been denied a vital service after her local long COVID clinic closed.
I found out on my last visit to the clinic that was going to be my last visit, and the staff were clearly very upset and disappointed by this too. So seeing that happening was upsetting, But there's also been an impact of that to me, you know, feeling in free fall after that. I, as yet, haven't had any follow-up from my GP or any other practitioners about what support I might have available to me. And it has involved me, you know, taking out that time from other things that need my attention to prioritise this, to scrabble around and see what support can I have, what do I need in place at work, what do I need in place with friends and family. And I've been very lucky to have people around me who've offered support and advice on that.
And amid those fears of being forgotten, campaigners say the government needs to do more to support those left with life-changing disabilities since catching the virus.
It's a severely debilitating illness. I know people who are bedbound, unable to tolerate light or sound, and they're not recovering, and they won't recover unless they get biomedical treatment. And so, yeah, for a lot of people, the pandemic is very far from over.
Juliet knows she will live with the long-term complications from COVID for the rest of her life. She says she just wants the support to live as fulfilled a life as possible.
It's hard, but I try to put my best out every day. But COVID has taught me a lot about myself. It's taught me a lot about being resilient and leaning on the community, leaning on family and friends who are in a position and who want to offer help.
Well, next to the crowds who gathered in Kendal to bid farewell to a little girl who was killed when a car hit her while playing football.
Yes, mourners wore red to the funeral of Poppy Atkinson, who dreamed of one day playing for Manchester United.
The 10-year-old was struck on the sports pitch along with a second child who was injured during football practice.
Zoe Muldoon has more.
Earlier this month, Poppy Atkinson had been doing what she loved most, playing football. Today, her coffin was brought to her funeral at Kendal Parish Church. Hundreds turned out to remember the 10-year-old. Many wore red, a nod to Poppy's beloved Manchester United. Poppy died after she was hit by a car on a sports pitch during football practice. A man arrested on suspicion of causing death by dangerous driving has since been released under investigation. Applause from pupils as the cortege passed by a local high school. Poppy's own school was closed today, allowing her classmates and teachers to say their goodbyes. The funeral procession passed through Poppy's hometown, grief etched on the faces of mourners, a town still in shock.
It's just a sad day, but I'm glad to see the community to get together for this sad, emotional day.
I just think it brings the community together. We've all been upset about it. I've got young grandchildren who it could have been.
Yeah. It's upsetting. I didn't know her or anything like that, but such a shame for such a young child to have to go like that.
Family, friends, strangers all gathered as they remembered the young girl whose energy and passion for football was infectious. Poppy was a force of nature, say her family, who was determined to play for Manchester United. One of her heroes, Lioness Georgia Stanway, who's also from Cumbria, said the football world will miss you, Poppy. You'll always play a special role. A fundraiser for a memorial to Poppy and support for grassroots football teams has raised almost £50,000. Poppy's family said the love and kindness shown by the community has been their light in these very difficult and tragic times. Zoe Muldoon, ITV News.
Well, next tonight, to the inquest of a dad from Failsworth, whose family are determined that lessons will be learned following his murder.
Ashley Walsh was aged 34 when he was killed, his body disposed of in horrific circumstances.
Not only were the circumstances of Ashley's murder callous and brutal, his family also learned that both his killers were under the supervision of the probation service at the time of Ashley's death.
Yeah, one of them had also been visited by police for buying an illegal knife a month before the murder. Our correspondent Anna Yosef has been following this story for us and joins us now from Manchester Coroner's Court. Anna.
Ashley Walsh's remains were found in 4 suitcases that had been thrown into some bushes in a park in Manchester in January 2022. He'd been murdered by 2 men he thought were his friends. Aaron Evitt and his uncle Gerard McLachlan were jailed for life for the father of one's murder. During their trial, the court had heard how the three men had been drinking and then things had turned violent. Ashley Walsh was hit over the head with a hammer before being repeatedly stabbed in the chest. His body had then been dismembered. When the murder happened, both of the killers had been on probation after being released from prison following an attempted burglary, and police had visited McLachlan at his home a month before the murder after he tried to buy an illegal knife. Today, Ashley's mother and auntie, accompanied by their legal team, attended his inquest. They've told the coroner they want to know the risk these two men posed prior to the tragedy and whether Ashley's death could have been avoided.
And Anna, the inquest heard evidence today from the police officer who visited Gerard McLachlan at home just weeks before the murder after he tried to buy an illegal gravity knife from a foreign website.
That's right, PC Kieran Walsh, no relative to the deceased, said he didn't know that McLachlan was on licence when he visited him at home alone. In fact, despite being a police officer for 2 years at that time, when McLachlan told him that he was on licence, he didn't know what that meant, and he failed to include that information in a subsequent police report. He also told the court that he hadn't been made aware of McLachlan's previous convictions, and having discussed the matter with a more senior colleague, the decision had been taken not to charge McLachlan with an offence, but to warn him that he'd broken the law and to use this as an educational visit. By buying that illegal knife, McLachlan had breached the terms of his licence, which meant, in theory, he could have been recalled back to prison, which means that there was a possibility that Ashley Walsh's fate could have been changed. That inquest continues tomorrow.
OK, Anna in Manchester, many thanks indeed. Well, next tonight, the famous Liverpool venue where it's believed John Lennon and Paul McCartney played live together for the first time, that has been destroyed in a devastating blaze.
Yeah, the fire broke out at the former Conservative club in Norris Green, now home to Jade School of Dance, causing thousands of pounds of damage to the building and also specialist equipment.
The school has been a much-loved part of the community since 2012, with the blaze leaving those who use it devastated.
Well, Victoria Grimes now picks up the story for us.
It was an historic performance, believed to be the first time Lennon and McCartney played a gig together as the Quarrymen. And it was on this stage in 1957 that it happened, a stage which, until now, had stood the tests of time. Now, it's destroyed.
It's 10 times worse than I thought it would be. It's really upsetting, to be honest.
Seeing the devastation for the first time, Beatles guide Jackie and the Quarrymen drummer Colin, who was on the stage that night.
Here, Paul decided he was going to do a guitar solo, so John was singing, and when it came to the solo bit, John stopped singing and I carried on playing, and Paul just went, nothing happened, so John just laughed and said, it's all right, it's on you lads, so he just carried on. But after that he said, that's it, I'm never doing a guitar solo again, but I know somebody who can play guitar. Yeah. And that was George. So.
It's such a pivotal moment, you know. George was brought in because Paul messed up in here. So it's such an important place.
Yeah. The building's been lovingly preserved by dance teacher Louise Edge, who recognised that its heritage would inspire the stars of the future and provide a haven for those who need it the most.
It's very much a family. We have children as young as 1 attend up to, you know, adults in their 80s. I've had so many people say to me they're devastated that their child's safe space is gone. And that's massive to me, because this is a place where children who don't feel safe for 8 hours a day can come and feel wanted, included and safe. And, you know, for them, they haven't got that at the minute, so that is quite devastating, and they're really upset about that.
It's kind of like an escape from the world. Like, if you've had a bad day, if you had a bad week, you always know that you can come here.
If you don't know, like, how to express how you're feeling, then you can always just, like, dance it out, and you're always going to feel better.
What does this place mean to you, Shane?
It's, like, really important because, like...
It just means so much, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I can see.
to see it like this, or like broken, burnt, destroyed, it's just like sad and stuff.
The fire also destroyed special mats and equipment used for learning acrobatics. The children had raised thousands themselves to buy them. A GoFundMe page has now been set up to help rebuild and replace, and an army of dance mums have deployed to get things going. It's given everyone hope for the future.
Hopefully it'll bring new light and we'll be able to carry it on for the little ones that we now teach.
Yeah.
Because the old ones used to teach us.
When things happen that are bad, people really, really do come together, and I've seen it before, but I've never actually felt it for myself, and I'm so grateful.
Victoria Grimes, ITV News, Clubmore.
You can find out more about that story on our website and the usual address, itv.com/Granada. You know, something tells me that club will be back, and those kids will pass it on to that next generation.
They will raise that money, which is devastating.
Yeah,
You see what it means to the kids, isn't
Yeah.
it? OK, on to sport now. And Robbie Savage is sticking with Macclesfield, Chris.
He is indeed. You know, he's always proved that he could talk a good game with all the media work that Robbie Savage does, but where he's really pleased is that he's backed it up in his first season as manager, and he's actually had some success with Macclesfield, so they'll be delighted that he's staying with them, despite a surge in interest from bigger clubs higher up the football pyramid. In his first season in management, Robbie Savage has won a trophy. Macclesfield became Northern Premier League champions with a win over Bamber Bridge at the weekend. It's their third promotion in 4 years. Savage paused his celebrations to chat with David Chisnall.
Celebrations for Macclesfield FC after a third promotion in 4 years, and their first with Robbie Savage as manager. It's a special moment for the players, the fans and the former Blackburn Crew and Wales midfielder, who's played a key role at the club following its formation in 2020 in the aftermath of Macclesfield Town going bust.
Very personal, this, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was emotional. Listen, you know, I want to make my family proud of me. I love when people say I can't do it. I've put my money where my mouth is. A lot of people would have said when I was director of football, he's got all the answers, let him do it. Well, I've done it, and we've seen the 5,000 fans were on the pitch and what it meant to them. Didn't have a club 4 years ago, so all the hard work, all the effort, all the desire from my players, my staff and the fan base, they deserved it.
Working closely alongside the owner Rob Smethurst, Robbie's been with the club from its very beginnings in the 9th tier of football, originally as director of football, before switching to manager last June.
You know, I've had some people saying negative things, but again, that's fuel to my fire. And on Saturday, when, you know, my 2 boys are here, my family are here, that means so much to me. And for them to see their father, be a champion for the first time in terms of winning a league title, doesn't matter what level it is.
Yeah, what an achievement to think how far we've come from a club that, you know, obviously went bankrupt, and, you know, obviously we took it over, and now it's, you know, it's thriving. It's unbelievable to what we've done, really, to be fair.
Where do you go from here then? The march back to the Football League, it's well and truly on.
Oh, it's well and truly on, yeah. I mean, this is what we bought the club for. You know, we've got huge ambitions here. You know, we're trying to be sustainable as much as we can. We've got a great business model, and we've got a great manager.
Success with Macclesfield has brought interest from other clubs, but Robbie says he's going nowhere just yet.
It would take something very, very special to take me away from this football club. Listen, I'm not naive enough to think that in the future, if a club which I couldn't turn down came in, of course you would have to look at the situation. But right now, you know, I can name clubs in League One and League Two. Would I leave now to go there? No, I wouldn't, because we're bigger than most. The fan base is bigger than most. The journey, the project is bigger than most. So right now I'm really happy, and my focus now is getting this team into the National League at the first attempt.
Singing Adele and a pint of shandy was how Robbie celebrated promotion to the National League North. Other celebrations are on ice for now, until the team get their hands on the trophy after the final home game on April the 26th. David Chisnall, ITV News, Macclesfield.
Yeah, fantastic to see Macclesfield fans with something to smile about again. Now to tonight's international action, and after narrowly missing out on the England squad last week, Liverpool's Jarell Quansah has a chance to impress new manager Thomas Tuchel after being recalled to the squad for the World Cup qualifier.
I think they know. I've spoken to both of them also in front of the group. They know that I appreciate the effort. I think especially off the ball. we can see in the numbers, and we can see when we watch the match again how much effort they put in into defending high, into the counter press.
Now to the rest of the weekend's action, and Blackpool made it 3 wins out of 4 games in League One. They've probably left it too late for a playoff push. They're 7 points behind the top 6, despite this 2-0 win at Northampton. Elsewhere, Stockport were beaten, but in League Two, Barrow drew 2-2 at Wimbledon. Crewe are just a point outside of the playoff spots after a goalless draw at Notts County. Accrington also managed a goalless draw on their trip to Swindon Town. Morecambe were beaten, which meant Tranmere could move 7 points clear of the relegation zone thanks to their 0-0 draw at Fleetwood. Manchester United are tightening their grip on a Women's Champions League spot with help from this long-range effort from Grace Clinton. They thrashed Aston Villa 4-0 in Super League to move 7 points clear of 4th place Manchester City, who lost against Chelsea. Liverpool also lost, but Everton beat bottom of the table Crystal Palace 3-0. It was another milestone weekend for Everton's new stadium. The second of the test events at Bramley Moor Dock ended with a planned evacuation to earn a safety certificate, though concerns remain over public transport and parking on match days. 25,000 supporters had been inside the ground to watch Everton's under-21s beat Bolton 1-0.
Leaving Goodison is a wrench, but time's got to move on.
The atmosphere was lovely, wasn't it? Even though there's only a few fans in there.
There's no restricted views or anything, you can see right around, which was amazing. So it's nice being here and part of history.
I started watching this Everton team, the best in the world, in 1948 when I was 10. I'm still here and I'm welcoming the new ground.
He still looks good on it, though, doesn't he? Now, to a sad farewell to one of our groundbreaking mixed martial artists. Molly Meatball McCann has retired from the sport after defeat at UFC London at the weekend. She was submitted in the first round by Alexia Tainara, but she retires as one of the UK's biggest MMA stars, having won 7 of her 14 bouts in the UFC, 6 by knockout and 3 Performance of the Night bonuses.
Getting that winning feeling. FOW, sponsor of the Granada Sport Report.
Now, let's just go back to Everton in the Women's Super League in a match Rika Madsen won't forget in a hurry. Not only was it her first game back from maternity leave, but it was also the day her boyfriend Martin Thompson popped the question, and she said yes. They sealed the engagement with a ring just outside the centre circle. Rika said afterwards she hates surprises, but this one apparently was all right. How sweet from the Toffees, eh?
Congratulations to the happy couple.
Isn't it fantastic? I'll tell you what, I've not seen the ring up close, but she knows a diamond formation when she sees one.
Any more, Chris? Any more?
I'll leave it there. I think I'll quit well and behind. But yeah,
well, I spent loads of time researching where I was going to pop the question to Mrs. F. Like, it's a venue that we first met, and she had no idea where it was when I actually popped the question.
Oh,
yeah.
Lovely. Time now for a look at the weather. Here's Emma.
Why do I need a shower? I've been out in the rain.
The faster you go, the sooner you'll be out. You'll save water too.
United Utilities sponsors ITV Granada Weather.
Hello there, very good evening to you. Hope you've had a good day. Well, wasn't it beautiful out there? And there's more where that came from, so a dry, fine start to the week. Some rain in prospect later on towards the back end of the week, but a few question marks over the timing and the amounts and the placement of that. There will be some mist and fog as well. It's been a pretty dry March so far. In fact, we think it's going to rank as one of the top 10 driest Marches on record, so we could do with a splash of rain, but most of that's going to come through by night rather than by day. Overnight tonight, we have a cold front dropping southeastwards, clearing up behind it, high pressure building again, and then yet another front on Wednesday. Not too much on those, but later in the week there will be some more active fronts pushing through. So rewinding to the next few hours, you can see that cloud and patchy light rain reaches the Isle of Man first of all before spreading to all parts of the patch, and you'll find mist and murk forming and low cloud and hill fog forming really very readily. It's going to be really dank and damp out there overnight tonight, and temperatures actually will will rise through the night, so we'll have early minimums with only light winds. Into tomorrow morning then, the sun's up 6:02, sets at 6:33, and you'll find that it's probably going to be quite poor visibility with some very thick low cloud across the Isle of Man and low visibility and even down to sea level at the coast. But there is an improvement in sight and in prospect, so some good spells of sunshine by the afternoon. A hangback of high level cloud and top temperatures only around 11 or 12 Celsius. That's a little bit down on today's values where we got 15 or 16. Tomorrow night it's going to be colder than tonight will be. You'll see with some clear skies forming and also some mist and fog. Poor visibility Wednesday morning, but again opening up to brightness later. Bye-bye.
United Utilities sponsors ITV Granada weather.
Thanks, Emma. That's it from us today. Stay with ITV1 because Mary's coming up next with the national and international news.
Until then, we shall see you tomorrow. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.